Okay, this video is to show you how to search for empirical academic research papers that you can use for your reflection papers for class. I'm going to show you two different ways that you can search for papers. The first one here is through the University of Maryland Library website through a database search portal called PsycInfo. So to get to PsycInfo, what you're going to do is click here on databases, and see I've already typed it in here, but you're going to type in PsycInfo into this search field and then click search, and here it is right here. You want to click on PsycInfo, and that'll take us where we want to go, and where it takes us to is just this sort of generic search portal, and you can type in your search terms up here. If you have multiple search terms, you have multiple places to do that. So let's just say, for example, you're interested in research on language development. So we have that there. We'll just search the whole paper. We won't select a specific field, and then click search. And that brings up a lot of papers. You'll see language development is obviously a pretty generic term. I would encourage you to have much more specific idea of what you're looking for when you start looking for these papers. You'll also see over here some information where you can refine your search a little bit. This is dating back all the way to 1685, so you might want to look, within the last 10-15 years or so to sort of limit your search that way. Or you can put more specific search terms up here. Let's say maybe you're interested in language development in infancy, something like that. That can help to narrow the search a little bit, actually pretty significantly. Papers within here are typically ordered chronologically, so the most recent things up at the top, going down older papers. So let's just sort of click on one, see if this is something that you're interested in here. Oh, something first I want to point out is that these little icons here will tell you what kind of a listing this is. So this first one is an academic journal paper. Next one is a book. This is either the full book or most likely a book chapter. Yeah, you can see here this is a chapter. Down here, this is a dissertation. Those get listed up once you graduate. So we, for the purposes of this class and the reflection papers, want to stick with academic journal papers. So just take a look at that before you're clicking through and looking at things. So let's click on this paper. Suppose you find it interesting. What do you see here is just a summary of the paper. You see the authors, you see the journal that it came from, the year, all of that good stuff. Also the abstract. This is where you'll want to start just to make sure. Sometimes titles can be misleading. Make sure the paper is really about what you think it is and that it's actually going to be an interesting one, worthwhile to read, and then a whole bunch of more information about the paper itself. And then to actually read it, you can go over here to linked full text. I do expect you to read the full paper and not just look at the abstract. So this brings us to a PDF of the article. You have the full thing here. And then you can, depending on your browser, wherever your buttons are, but you can click to download it or print it, whatever works for you. Something else I'd like to point out back on this summary page here is this tab here, Cite. If you click on that, it brings up a bunch of formatted citations for this paper, depending on what format you're interested in. For this class, we'll be using APA style, and I just, this is a great place to start with, but please do check these citations before just copying and pasting it into your paper. They're only as good as the person they have entering this data, and sometimes there'll be typos, sometimes they won't actually be incorrect APA format. So while you can start here to get most of the information, please do check over these before just inserting them directly into your paper. But as the assignment sheet says for these reflection papers, I do expect you to have these full citations included for any papers that you reference in your paper. Okay, so that's basically it. One thing I also do want to point out is that I am accessing this I'm on campus right now, so it's automatically registering that I'm at the University of Maryland which is what's allowing me to have access to all of these papers. If you are accessing this from home, at some point in this process, you're going to have to sign in with your University of Maryland ID. So I think that will probably happen when you're here and clicking to open it. It will just bring up a site that asks you to indicate what campus you are on. We'd be the University of Maryland College Park, and then to enter your user ID and your password. But then you'll be taken to this same site, and it should have that University of Maryland logo there, and then you'll be able to search for and access all of the papers. So that's PsycInfo. The next thing I wanted to show you about was Google Scholar. So to access that, you just go to scholar.google.com, and in here, I mean, this is just like a regular Google search. So again, let's say we're interested in language development in infancy, and it brings up a whole bunch of papers. Again, some of them are books, some of them are journal articles. Just be mindful of what you're looking at. The algorithm that Google uses is different than the one that PsycInfo uses, so papers are going to show up. The first papers that show up are the ones that are clicked on or searched for or looked at the most, as opposed to the most recent. So just sort of be mindful of that. But again, you can just either click on the link here, and that'll bring you usually to the journal website. If you're on campus, then again, it'll sort of register that you are a University of Maryland student or staff, and so you should have access. But if you're at home, you might have some trouble accessing some of the papers through Google Scholar. If you have issues with that, we can sort of work through that together. But if you can't access a paper that you're really interested in, that you found through Google Scholar, sometimes what I would recommend is that you just get the information, copy the title, authors, that sort of stuff, and then you can go back into the PsycInfo and search for it there. But if you are signed in or accessing from campus, then you can usually just access the paper, or you can go find at UMD, and it'll bring you to the library's listing for that paper and direct you to that same page that we saw before. So hopefully this will give you guys some help when you're searching for articles. But of course, if you have more questions about it or any trouble accessing these things, you can just ask me or ask your classmates, even better.